What's Your Dream by Simon Squibb? Turning dreams into reality, huh? Sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah, I thought so too. And you know what caught my eye? It looks like Squibb, he's not just talking about dreams, like theoretically. This review makes it sound like he's got a whole framework for making them happen.
Oh, so it's like less about just getting motivated, more about actually, doing something.
Right, there's like a roadmap or something. But, okay, before we get into all that, what about Squibb himself? This guy has like a really interesting background.
Yeah, the review mentioned that, right? Went from like homelessness to being a successful entrepreneur.
Exactly. I mean, talk about overcoming obstacles, right? That alone makes you want to hear what he has to say.
Totally. Makes you wonder, like, what were those turning points for him? Was he like always business-minded, or did that come later?
Good question. Well, the review doesn't get into like his whole life story, but it does say that his experiences, facing challenges definitely shaped his whole approach to dreams.
So instead of just being like, go for it, he's acknowledging that there are real obstacles, right?
Yeah, like fear of failing or pressure from, family, friends, or like money problems, all that stuff.
And then he gives you ways to deal with that.
That's what it sounds like. The review mentions this whole framework he lays out in the book. Figuring out your purpose, finding opportunities, getting support from people.
Okay, hold on. Break that down a bit. What kind of opportunities are we talking about here?
So he talks about looking beyond the obvious, right? Like using your skills and your passions in like unexpected ways. There's this example of this woman who loved baking, and she ended up starting this catering business focusing on like special diets.
So it's not just about having like a brilliant idea, it's about like finding a creative way to use what you already know.
Yeah, exactly. And he talks a lot about support networks too.
Right, because go after a dream, it's like, tough. You need people in your corner.
Absolutely. He says it's important to have people who believe in you, people who can give you advice and help you when things get rough.
Like a team of cheerleaders and mentors, kind of.
Yeah. And it could be like anyone, right? Mentors, friends, even online communities. Just people who get what you're trying to do.
This is cool. Like, this book isn't just about dreaming bigger. It's like a toolbox for making those dreams real. What else does the review say?
One thing that really stood out to me was this emphasis on adapting and always learning new stuff. He seems to get that, the path to your dream. It's rarely a straight line.
Totally. You can't just plan everything perfectly and expect it all to like fall into place.
Nope. There are going to be setbacks and detours, and you got to be ready to, adjust.
And Squibb is saying you got to be open to that.
Yeah, like he wants you to see those challenges as part of growing and learning. He talks about being open to new information, experimenting, and not being afraid to, mess up sometimes.
It's true, right? We get so hung up on having like the perfect plan, and then when things go wrong, we just give up.
And Squibb's like, forget the perfect plan. Just have a clear idea of where you want to go and be flexible, be ready to change things up.
Yeah, and to do that, you got to keep learning new things, right?
Exactly. I bet he had to do that a lot himself, with his background.
Yeah, overcoming homelessness and all that. I mean, talk about a crash course in adapting.
Totally. And, this idea of like adapting and learning, it's not just for entrepreneurs, right? It's for anyone, no matter what their dream is.
That's so true. It's like, remember that deep dive we did on getting comfortable with being uncomfortable?
Oh, yeah.
Like, if you're always playing it safe, you're never going to, really grow.
That's such a good point. And actually, this review mentions that Squibb talks a lot about taking action.
He's like, stop dreaming, start doing, right?
Well, it's not quite that simple. You don't want to just jump into something without thinking it through. But yeah, he's definitely saying that action. It's like the fuel that makes things happen.
So you need both, right? The planning and the doing.
Exactly. And he's big on breaking down your goals into like smaller steps.
Oh, that makes sense. Like smaller chunks are less scary.
Right. And he says that even small actions, like if you do them consistently, they can build up and create like a ripple effect.
Oh, I like that. It's like, what's that saying? A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single
Step.
Something.
Step, yeah.
And he even gives like practical tips for taking those first steps, like setting deadlines, figuring out what might get in your way, and finding ways to stay accountable.
Okay, so this is actually starting to sound pretty helpful. It's like less about feeling inspired and more about like, okay, here's what you actually do.
Yeah, it's not just a pep talk, it's a guidebook. And what's cool is he manages to be both inspiring and practical at the same time. He's like, here's why your dreams matter, and here's how to make them happen.
Yeah, exactly. He's talking to your heart and your head.
Love that. Okay, so let's think about our listener for a second. Someone's listening to this, they're feeling inspired, they're like, okay, I'm ready to go after my dream. What's the first thing they should do?
Ooh, good question. I think Squibb would say You got to start by asking yourself some tough questions.
Like what kind of questions?
Like, what really lights me up? What makes me, like, lose track of time? He thinks that figuring out what truly excites you, that's the first step.
So it's not about like trying to be what other people think you should be. It's about figuring out what you really love.
Yeah, it's about listening to your gut, you know, and not feeling like you need to have all the answers right away.
So less about having a 5-year plan and more about like exploring and just seeing where things go.
Exactly. And this review, it says that Squibb's really big on embracing the whole journey, even the messy parts.
Because that's where you learn the most, right? When things get tough.
Right. He thinks the journey is just as important as the destination.
You know, it's funny, when I think back to times in my life where I felt like stuck, unsure of what I was doing, it was always when I like pushed myself out of my comfort zone, when I tried something new, that I discovered things I never even knew I was interested in.
I bet a lot of people listening can relate to that. And what's great is Squibb's like acknowledging that feeling of uncertainty.
He's not saying you need to have it all figured out to get started.
Nope. It's more about having the guts to take those first steps, even if you don't know where they're going to lead.
So this book, it's not like, here's the magic formula for success. It's more like, here's how to figure out what your success looks like and go after it.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. And what's so powerful about that is it makes achieving your dreams feel possible for anyone. It's not about fitting into some mold. It's about being yourself and using what makes you you to create a life that, you know, has meaning.
Yeah, that's huge. Especially in a world where everyone's telling you what you should be doing, what you should want. Squibb's like, forget all that. Listen to yourself. Yeah, tuning out all that outside noise, right? It's hard, though. Everyone's always comparing themselves to everyone else.
It really is. And I think that's where this whole, this idea of finding your purpose, that's where that comes in. You know, it's not just about having a dream. It's got to be connected to something bigger, something that, like, gives it meaning.
Oh, I see. So it's like finding that sweet spot where your passion meets, like, making a difference in the world.
Exactly. It sounds like Squibb has exercises and stuff in the book to help you figure out what your purpose is, like how to make sure your actions match up with your values.
That's so cool. I think so many people, they just feel lost, you know? Like, what's the point of all this? But if you can tie your dream to something, like, meaningful, something you really believe in, that's got to help you keep going when things get tough.
Totally. And speaking of tough times, the review mentions Squibb's take on failure.
Oh, yeah. What about that? Does he, like, think it's the worst thing ever?
Not even close. He actually sees it as, like, a necessary part of learning. You know, he wants you to reframe it, think of setbacks as chances to grow and, like, adjust your course.
Like, you win or you learn, right?
Exactly. He even says some of his biggest successes came from things that, like, at first seemed like total flops. It's all about being able to, you know, pick yourself back up and figure out what went wrong.
Makes you think about his whole homelessness thing, right? I bet he hit a lot of roadblocks on his way to, you know, where he is now. But he didn't give up.
Nope, he didn't. And that just shows you how important mindset is. It's not just about the dream. It's about having the toughness to keep going when things are rough.
That's such a good reminder. It's so easy to get discouraged when things don't go your way. But if you can see those setbacks as chances to learn, then you're more likely to, you know, keep going.
Absolutely. And I think that's a big takeaway from this whole deep dive into what's your dream. It's not just a book about setting goals. It's about having the right mindset, you know, and having the tools and the strength to actually reach those goals, to build a life that you're, like, proud of.
So well said. Okay, so as we wrap things up here, what's one final thought, maybe a question that we can leave our listeners with, something that might, like, inspire them to take action on their own dreams?
That's a good one. How about this? What's one tiny thing you can do today to get a little closer to your dream? It doesn't have to be anything huge, just one small step in the right direction.
I love that. Even a small step is still movement, right?
Exactly. And you never know, that one small step could lead to something amazing.
Beautiful. So to all our listeners out there, if this has sparked something in you, definitely check out Simon Squibb's book, What's Your Dream? It's worth a read.
And don't forget, no matter where you are on your journey, your dreams matter. They have the power to shape your future, to make the world a better place.
So true. So go out there, dream big, embrace the journey, and keep taking those steps one at a time. And until next time,